Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to From Crystal with Love XO. I am coming in on a Tuesday because we have an amazing conversation. I hope that you guys have been enjoying some of the great conversations that we've been having here on the channel. I saw that a lot of you had a chance to check out the conversation that I had with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is actually running for president on the independent ticket. And so I just want to tell you guys thank you for those of you that watch the channel that did take the time to watch that, because usually we talk about relationships, and that conversation was not necessarily about relationships, but it is about something that's really important to everyone, all of us that are in this country, and trying to figure out how do we take care of our families as best we can. Politics are a big part of that. So I just want to extend a thank you for that. But getting to tonight's conversation, we're right back to where we usually are, which is talking about relationships. You guys know that I have this book, Dear Alpha Female, It's Not Him, It's You. And this book was written to really help women that are not married, women that are single and may not understand why they're having such a difficult time dating. But I thought tonight, because I am married, I still consider myself recently married. I've been married about 3 years, with my husband, about 4 total. But I wanted to have this conversation about marriage, because so many women are thinking, I think there's 2 types of people, or at least the majority, right? So there's either the type that really want to be married and are very frustrated that they're not. And then there are the women that have kind of decided that they're not going to even try anymore, because they have seen so many negative situations, or maybe they've had so many issues dating. But tonight I want to focus on those of you that want to be married, and maybe even some of you that are married. And, after you get married, then you realize, wait a minute, I was trying to get to this point, and now I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Maybe this is not what I wanted in the first place. And so joining me is going to be a guest that I have so much respect for. She is a motivational speaker. She is a pastor. She is a mother. She is a mentor. But most importantly, she just has a beautiful heart and a beautiful spirit. And so I want you guys to help me welcome Dr. Jeri Godhigh to From Crystal with Love. Hey.
Hey, Christal, how are
I am
you?
great. How are you? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Yes.
We're just getting started. The week is just getting started. Um,
Amen.
so how was your weekend? Did your weekend go well?
It was wonderful. Eventful, but not eventful. Just a lot of cleaning up and getting things in order. I feel like if when your house is in order as far as stuff is
Mhm.
concerned, it helps you to be in order. I don't know, maybe somebody else might think something different, but for me, it helps me to feel like, okay, I can do something now because I've got things in place. When I have stuff all over the place is when it becomes crazy.
Absolutely.
So that's what I did this weekend.
You're absolutely right, and you're actually, doing better than I am. I agree with you 100%, and I know that for myself, organization and making sure everything that is one of my biggest weaknesses, and I'm really
Mhm.
trying to work on that. So that is
Mhm.
definitely something. Today was the first day. I kind of decided that my new year was going to start over. I'm going to use February 1st as my new year.
Okay, yes.
January 1st, just there was a lot going on. And so I've learned in life, I used to put so much pressure on myself and feel like if I didn't get something done by this particular date,
Yeah.
that I would get so upset, so filled with anxiety. But now I've learned, like, just stop, reset,
Yes.
and start again. And so that is what I am going to do. You mentioned getting things together, and I can say, as I guess kind of a newlywed still,
Yeah.
things are a lot different when you are getting things together as a wife than
Yes.
you are single.
Mhm.
Sometimes maybe a little easier when you're single, I would think.
Right, because you only have yourself to be concerned about.
Yes, you only have yourself. And so I am still, I love talking to women like you and Coach Latanya and different women, because sometimes, I just need to hear from a woman that is married, how do you do this in a way that is inclusive, but still maintain your individuality? And so I think I want
Mhm.
to start there with you, Dr. Jeri, because you have this book. And first of all, you guys, this title of this book is going to blow your mind. But I want to ask you, before we get into that, how do you, as a wife, how have you managed to maintain connection with Jeri and not lose yourself in your marriage? And if and you know, did you ever struggle with that?
Sure. Thank you so much, Christal. I want to first say thank you for having me here today. I absolutely adore you. And so I appreciate this opportunity to share as we share together on this platform today. I'm going to tell you that after being married for 32 years, right? Bless
Mhm.
God, it has not always been easy. And I did lose Jeri. I didn't know who Jeri was from the very beginning. And I think that was a source of discontentment from the very beginning because I didn't know who I was. And so just fast forwarding from 1991 to when we got married to now 2020, really realizing that I had lost who I was. I didn't know who I was. I became everything I believed I thought my husband wanted me to be,
Mm,
only to find out it was still never enough. How do I balance it now? Is through the grace of God, but more importantly, it's through knowing who I am, what I want, what my passions are, what my goals are, and to stay true to that. And so, even when I'm trying to manage, quote unquote, right, everything, your home, your husband, your children, your grandchildren, we got grandchildren now,
mm,
all of these pieces, managing this is sometimes can be a struggle. But I feel like if you stay true to who you are and what you know you need to be doing, you find a way to fit things in. Everything is not going to fit into one day because
mhm,
we're not super women, although we try to be. We feel like we should be.
mhm,
Society puts all these things on us to make us feel like we can be, but
mhm,
we're not. We're still human beings that need me time, that needs care time, that needs, time to develop the giftings that God has given you. And so to not lose focus on what you're supposed to be doing, but to try to keep a balance, on the things you are going to do, the things you want to do, the things that you were born to do, and
mhm.
then still be able to be some things to your family, because you can't be all things to everyone. I tried,
Yeah.
and I was headed down Skid Row where I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Mhm,
Right? Because it's too much. And we carry so much. As women, we try to carry so much. We do everything. For me, I'm a fixer. I
mhm,
just found that out in counseling, a little while ago, that I'm a fixer. And so
yeah.
I have to fix everything. I have to organize everything. I got to make sure everything is okay. And in doing that for everybody else, I don't take care of me. So
Yeah.
now I realize, because at one point I had to drop everybody.
Mm.
Yeah, because everybody continues to take
Oh
because
yeah.
they're so used to you doing, doing, doing. So I had to drop everything and everybody to start taking care of me and to realize, Jeri, what are you even here for? Right? I think we talked about that the other day. What is the point? What is the point of my life? Why am I here? So
Mhm,
finding a way to balance my life, my family's life, my work life, all of that to come together to make sure that I complete what makes me happy. I was talking to someone today that I mentor about making sure you are happy. Find those things that give you pleasure, because everybody's going to pull from you. But
mhm.
you got to find a place to pull back, push back, and find a space that makes you happy
Yeah.
after 32 years.
Yeah. I think that is a great place to start because I think specifically women. I mean, I only know a woman's experience, so
Yes.
I can't speak to men. I'm sure that there are men that are fixers and and nurturers and everything as well. But for the most part, I know as a woman, a lot of times I want everybody around me to be happy.
Yeah.
I want, especially your children and your spouse and and family, parents and things, different things. So it
Yeah.
comes a time when you kind of have to figure out, wait a minute, I cannot live my life for other people. I really have to live for myself and then be
Yeah.
able to help them. So I appreciate that candor. But one of the reasons I wanted you to join me today, because we've been having a lot of conversations on this channel um, about relationships, and we talk a lot about dating and specifically what does that look like.
Yeah.
And there are all these ideas and people going back and forth. And I said, a lot of people are having this conversation, and not I don't feel like a lot of us are prepared, especially
Yeah.
the African American community. I don't think a lot of us are prepared for marriage. When I heard Michelle Obama acknowledge that, in her marriage, there were, I think it was like 5 to 10 years that were very hard and
Yeah.
that were bad. And the way that the public responded to that, specifically other women of color, where, there were so many people saying, well, that's not worth it. And that's not, why would she stay married? And it wasn't foreign to me because I remember
Mm.
being married early on, and my ex-husband's mother told me that they had been married at the time around 30 years. And she said, in this 30-year marriage, because I used to think, oh, wow, that just seems like the goal, right?
Right.
She was like, but if you have 5 horrible years, right,
Mhm.
but you
Mhm.
make it to 30, then that is a success because
Yeah.
and I remember thinking, oh, wow. I mean, that was eye-opening to me. And so when I heard Michelle Obama say that, I had heard that before. And so I didn't have the same response that I
Yeah.
might have had if I hadn't heard that. But I want to ask you, and I wanted to do this for my viewers. So if you guys are in the chat, please let us know that you're there. Drop an XO in the chat.
Yes,
And
yes.
also drop your questions as we listen to Dr. Jeri talk, because I definitely want to get questions as the conversation is going. So this can be interactive. I love having an interactive conversation with people.
Absolutely.
But I want to ask you, Dr. Jeri, as we get into this, um, what do you think the biggest misconception about marriage is? When you hear, when you counsel, when you mentor, when you read what's going on social media, what do you think the biggest misconception is, from a female standpoint specifically? Because we're women talking about
Yeah.
women. When you hear the conversation of marriage, what is the biggest thing that you think is like, whoa?
Yeah, that's really good. And so, when you read about it, think about it. How about when you live it? When
Mm,
you get married and you think that this person is your all in all, and it's going to make you extremely happy. Like, this is wonderful. We said, I do. We walked across the threshold. We have this beautiful home. We are. I'm speaking from experience. We are both ministers. We're working in the church. We are working outside of the church. We're making great money, but we're miserable
mm,
because I thought that he would make me happy. I
mhm,
didn't realize that he could never make me fully happy
mm,
because he could barely make himself happy. Right. So no, you're bringing two people together that
mm,
have two sets of issues, two sets of, the way they were raised, trauma, triumphs, all of these things in their household. And now you're bringing two people together, and each person is looking for this success. Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever, especially a woman. We think this is going to be my knight in shining armor. We're going to have the picket fence and we're just going to be happy. Yes. Oh my gosh. Right.
mm,
Until one day you're not. And you don't realize why. Why am I not happy? I have all these things. I have the
mm,
husband, but there comes a time and place where you have to realize that it's not him, it's you. And
mm,
that's why I love your book.
mm,
It's not him, it's you, because it really is. It's you being fulfilled with your own self. And then
mm,
when you have two fulfilled people coming together, that's when the true joy comes. But until you have that, a lot of times we get married and we don't know each other, we don't know ourselves
mhm,
individually. Now, some people they wait till they get married and they've done all the counseling, they know who they are, they're successful, and now they come together. They still have issues because now you still have to mesh and grow and gel together as
mm,
a couple, as one. And
mhm,
that sounds so easy, but it's not so easy. But
mm,
it comes from really just
yeah,
living day by day by day, and getting to know each other and yourself. And so our misconception, to answer your question, is that they're going to make us truly happy, and they're
mm,
going to fill in the gaps that we don't have. And that's not always true because they're not always able to fill in all those gaps. It's something that we have to do ourselves.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you guys, Princess, BC, Slaya, Miss J Reed, 04. Thank you guys for those XOs. If you're just joining, we are talking with Dr. Jeri Godhigh, and we're having a conversation about marriage because, like I said, a lot of times on this channel, we're talking about dating and how do we get to that point. But there are a lot of us out there that are married or, are looking to get married and may not have the true, I think, idea or concept of what it takes to remain married, because that should be the goal once you get married. I'm going to ask you because one of the things that I see on social media that we talk a lot about here, is that there's this idea that a man is supposed to come to the table already ready already, right? And so he is supposed to be a provider. I know I am a Christian, and in the Bible it's, a man is supposed to provide. And so I see a lot of young women that are looking for that, and they're not looking for much else, right? There's this idea
Mhm.
that he is supposed to come in, and he is supposed to do everything to take care of me as far as my financial needs. But there's very little about emotional, my ability to help him, my ability to support him emotionally, his ability to love me and to
Yeah.
communicate with me, and those
Mhm.
things. So I want to ask you, as a woman that's been married over 30 years, what is the thing that your husband gives you that you are most thankful for?
What I'm most thankful for is when he takes time to plan something for us. That makes me so happy because that means he took time to think of me. And I'm not saying we have to go to a five-star restaurant all the time, but what I am saying is that, whether it was to, he took time to pack a picnic basket and take us to the park, or he says, "Come on, let's walk, or let's go together,"
Mhm,
just to think of me, because
mhm,
I had this whole history of feeling like I was never chosen. And so that's a whole nother conversation. But
mhm,
for him to choose me and think of me of a way that, what, I'm going to do this for my wife, whether it
mhm,
was buying flowers, whether it's planning a date, whether it was just calling me, sending me a cute text,
mhm,
that makes me happy. Of course, gifts are great, but it's not everything, because you can give somebody a gift and still not really love them, not really adore them or cherish them, or cherish your relationship. You're just doing it out of the fact that you're just trying to keep her happy, but you're really not in tune to the relationship. So there is a difference. But I
mhm.
feel like the heart posture makes a difference. And that doesn't take a whole lot to
Yeah.
do. It just takes some caring.
It takes some thought, and I
Yeah.
love that. I want to come back to that. I want to put a pin in what you said and come back to it, because that was so powerful about being chosen. I can relate to that. Slaya asked this question: how should a married woman deal with her close girlfriends who are not? How should the relationship change? I am looking forward to hearing your answer on this, because I'm married, newly married, and a lot of my girlfriends are not married, obviously,
Yeah.
because I was a part of this very, very strong tribe of, entrepreneurial single women. So what are your thoughts on that, Dr. Jeri? Do you think that your relationship with your single close girlfriends have to change after you're married, or when you're in a marriage?
So I believe that you don't have to change. I believe that maybe some things have to change. Maybe some places that you decide to go to,
Mhm,
with your girlfriends. But I feel like your mindset needs to change, and not, if you feel like you're not strong enough mindset wise to not get caught up in the same things maybe they're doing because they don't have that accountability,
mhm,
then maybe you have to distance yourself. Some people I've heard say you can't hang out with, if you're married, you can't hang out with single people. I disagree with that. I believe it's a personal choice. I
mhm,
believe it's a person thing, right? I believe that depends on where you are in your own life and what you believe and your values. Like I
mhm,
tell, my husband or anybody else, just because somebody else is doing something doesn't mean that's for me. I
right.
know how to make a decision for me, whether they're hanging out and doing whatever, that's their decision, but I still love them. And so it just depends on the person or the people that you're hanging around and their values.
Mhm,
And so sometimes things change, sometimes people change, and maybe you have to pick different, not love them, but maybe you don't hang out with them as much because they don't value what you value. Does that
mhm.
make sense? It
No,
doesn't mean you
absolutely.
can't hang out with single women at all. I just don't agree with that, because I
Mhm,
believe that we can make decisions and choices on our own. But
yeah.
if you're not, going in the same places, you're going mindset wise, relationship wise, business wise, spiritual wise, then maybe those relationships change a little bit because you're growing. And so
Mhm,
you have to kind of assess, I believe daily where you are, because we ebb and flow. And so we go in and out of where we are as far as who we are.
mhm.
So whether they're single or married, sometimes people have to change. Some people have to, fall off your grid.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You
I was one of those women that, like, I have a lot of friends, and I wanted my friends to know that not only am I not gonna stop hanging out with them, but I'm not gonna change. I'm still your
know?
friend. I'm blessed in that my husband actually really, my friends love him. So, I've dated guys before that my friends did not like, and that can be difficult, but I think they weren't the right ones. And so
Yeah.
this one, my friends are all, it really does feel natural. But I agree. I used to go on what we call cutie runs with my friends and go try to, date, flirt,
Yeah.
find somebody out there to talk to, or just, drum up some business.
Right.
but
Right.
but yeah, I don't go on cutie runs anymore, but I do
Right.
still hang out with my friends. He hangs out with his friends. And I think that's healthy. Now I did have to tell my husband, because his friends like to go to the club. That's what they do.
Mhm.
Guys,
Mhm.
I was like, now don't look here, sir. Don't come in here. After a certain time,
Right. Right.
that's not married man behavior, because all his friends are single. But
Right.
we talked about that, and that's something that we discussed, because I didn't ever want him to feel like I didn't want him to be friends with his single guys. But
Yeah.
I also didn't necessarily, you don't necessarily want your husband hanging out, at the club, on a regular basis, because
Right.
I know what that looks
Environment.
like. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's his environment. Um,
Mhm.
I'm going to take, this wasn't necessarily a question, it was a statement, but I want to speak to that before I go back to something that you said,
Sure.
Dr. Jerry. And I want to encourage you guys to please continue to leave your questions in the chat, because that's what this conversation is for. It's really for women to connect, and men as well.
Yeah.
Anyone that's there, we want you guys to be a part of this conversation. So Miss J Reed Miss J Reed 04 says, I'm 41 and single. Men don't approach me anymore. And I would just say to that, before I
Yeah.
ask Dr. Jerry to speak to it, I said I'm going to start doing these little segments on flirting, because that was my thing before. When I was younger, I used to love coaching my girlfriends on how to flirt. And that was just, I think that was a publicist before I was a real publicist, because I would love to kind of create, okay, so let's create this environment, and learn how to really engage men in that way. And I do
Mhm.
think that sometime when we have not dated in a while, you can lose those feminine wiles that come naturally to us. And
Yeah.
so I would say to you, Miss J Reed, if you aren't, number one, 41 and single, that doesn't mean anything. Age is a number. And
Right.
girl, the love of your life could be right around the corner, and you will forget these 41 years before he got there. Trust me, the right one is worth waiting for. But
Yes.
I would say to you, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Why aren't men approaching you? I challenged my audience last week to smile. My girlfriend, Chili, told me, she said, Christal, whenever you walk into a store or any place, just smile. Smile
Yeah.
at everybody. And I remember, because I had gone through a divorce and I was not smiling at all. And she said, because she was telling me that, guys, I was saying, men that are not in my race never approach me. I said,
Mm.
don't. And she said, this is they're attracted to you, just you don't smile. And I tried it, because
Right.
she challenged me, and as she should, as my big God appointed big sister, she said, I
Yeah.
challenge you to do that. And so I would go, and I became aware of what I was doing. And what I
Mhm.
noticed, as J Reed 04, is that when I started being aware and just smiling, and at first it didn't feel natural, um,
Mhm.
but I started to receive different energy back, right? And I'm not
Mhm.
saying that you're supposed to be smiling at guys trying to get them to talk to
Right.
you.
Right.
Just change your perspective. And because your energy is what people pick up on before they pick up on
Mhm.
anything about you.
Right.
Features, hairdo, whatever you have on, the energy is what hits them first. And
Mhm.
if your energy is that I'm 41 and single and men don't approach me, then it's going to continue to perpetuate. But I feel like
Yeah.
if you can just get into the habit of smiling, and it's not, it's at everybody. It doesn't have to be, because some ladies were in the chat and they were like, well, I only smile at guys I'm attracted to. Well, that's a problem, sis, because it's
Right.
still, the energy is not right. And so
Right.
I would challenge you to just practice that. And when you practice that, I think that allows you to be open. I also challenge you to make eye contact with people, because a
Mhm.
lot of times we don't realize we're walking like this. And
Mhm.
and of course, if I was a man, I can imagine wanting to approach someone that's walking with their head down and not smiling. And I mean, we have to realize they're people too. They may, they're hunters, but I mean, a hunter is going to look for the prey that
Right.
looks like it is easier to catch. So
Right.
that would be my advice. Dr. Jerry, what advice would you give to Miss J Reed?
That's good, Christal. Hi, Miss J Reed 04. Thank you for really sharing, because sometimes that's hard to do, to really be open and be honest about where you are in life. Because you don't want everybody to know. I've been there. But I do want to say I agree with Christal. It is how we show up, right? Because when we walk in a room or we walk in a space and we're closed in, then that's how it stays. I mean, it stays kind of closed in, unless you have somebody that's super, on the prey and he's just talking to everybody. But mostly those who are interested in you will look at your vibe and they'll look at how you show up, and they'll either stay away or they'll come to you. Now, we'll say that most men like women that show up in a way that they're positive, that they feel like they know who they are, and they come across with this aura of, I am somebody, right? And when you're smiling and you walk and you're coming in, they were like, oh, who's that? I got to get to know who this person is. And so I know that when I was going through some things, I didn't show up that way. And I would feel the same way. Why isn't nobody talking to me? I know I'm cute, or maybe I'm not, but you are, but it's how you show up. And men are attracted to that energy that you put out. And so if you walk in a room or you walk in a grocery store and you're smiling and you are confident in who you are, they want to know who you are. When I just last year I was going through getting ready to get divorced, Christal, and I told my daughter, I said, I am 57 and how am I going to find somebody else? Will anybody even like me? And so we were standing in this brunch line and I had on this cute dress. I didn't, I just dressed up for myself at that point, right? Just dress up for myself. And I was standing in the brunch line and this guy came up to me and he said, if nobody else tell you today, you look fabulous. He said, no, you look fabulous. And I'm like, okay, because I didn't even think I looked fabulous, right? But it was something about me that made him say that. But I realized at that point, oh my gosh, okay, thank you, Lord. He'll send you signs that, okay, I am fabulous, even when sometimes you don't always know it. So I would say to you, Jay Reed, just walk in who you are, your true authentic self, and smile. Demand presence when you get there, not with your mouth, but just your whole body. And with your whole body, when your body demands presence, people will surround you, and the right person, you'll know who it is.
Yeah. I like that. Well, Jay Reed, thank you for that. Hey, Tina Bree, I want to hear your results. She said she's going to take the challenge of smiling.
Yay.
And I think, it doesn't just do something for other people. I think it also does something for us.
Absolutely.
Because it makes you, hey, Mo, what's up, Scorpio Mo? He joined the chat. Mo, if you have any questions from a guy's perspective, please put those in the chat. Dr. Jeri, I want to go back because something you said was so important. And I want to just, like I said, this conversation, I want to do these conversations to help people. And this is something that I've struggled with. Hearing you say that and I know there are other women out there. I was having a conversation with my daughter, who I need to talk to you about after this is over. But this idea of feeling like I haven't been chosen. I was talking to a guy friend about why it was important for me to be with a man that was faithful, right?
Yeah.
And I said, as a woman, you feel, for me, I grew up and I can acknowledge I had daddy issues, right? My dad was not there, and I didn't feel like my father didn't necessarily want to be in my life. That's a long story. My father was a drug addict, so he didn't make the choice. But growing up, it felt very much like no one made me their priority. I was no one's choice. My dad was not around. And so it was really important to me to know that whoever I was with, that I was really their choice, right? And I can acknowledge that a lot of times I felt very insecure because, especially a man that has a lot of women or has had a lot of women, you think, what is special about me? And I don't know if men really understand how important that is to us. I love how you articulated that. Talking about when your husband does something for you, it makes you feel like he's choosing you.
Yeah.
I love that. But I want you to talk a little bit more about how you were able to really deal with that yourself. Like, how did you handle the idea that you felt like you weren't chosen, to where you could be in a more, I guess, healthy place to be able to not put that on him.
Right. Well, Christal, it starts way back, right? And that's typically where it does start. And I believe in getting therapy at all costs, because we don't realize that it starts young. It starts when we're little. And like you, my father wasn't in my life either. And it wasn't because he didn't choose to. He died. He got killed when I was 5 years old. So that was hit one, right? And then as I went on, my mother, I ended up going to stay with my aunt because she couldn't handle it. And so again, to me, that was hit too. Not
Mhm.
that she really wanted to do that, but she couldn't do it, right? But it still felt abandoned. And
Mhm.
so again, feeling like you're not chosen. I was the only child, so I was by myself.
Yeah.
So I did go back to live with my mom when she got better, and she's a super mom, but
Mhm.
it was still just that place. And so I always realized, why did I resonate with Creed and why did I resonate with Rocky? Because they were always the underdog, and so I always felt like I was the underdog, never chosen, from people not choosing me, from not being chosen for the cheerleading squad, from all the guys would look over me and they would choose my friends. And so I just felt like I was not the chosen one. And so when I got married, I didn't realize that my husband wasn't ready to get married, but we
Mhm.
got married because I was pregnant. I had a child, right? And so my second child, his child, and so I felt like he got it. He did it out of commitment. And
Mhm.
so then there long, goes a whole long story of still not feeling like
Mhm.
he really wanted to be there, but that he was there because he felt forced. And
Yes.
so it was a whole 20 years, of still feeling not chosen because he would treat me a certain way because he really didn't want it. Right.
Mhm.
He just felt compelled to because of the circumstances.
Mhm.
But we didn't really understand why we weren't doing this marriage right. Why was he not loving me that way? I didn't understand. I just always felt I was not chosen. And so I went through therapy in 2020. So again, this is all the way up into 2020, get therapy to realize that it really wasn't him. It's really, well, part of it was him, but mostly it was me. Mostly it was me not knowing who I was and realizing that I had to work through some daddy issues, some trauma issues of not being chosen, of not knowing who I was, not knowing that I was even beautiful. People
Yeah.
would tell you, "Oh, you're so cute." Where? I don't know that. I didn't know I could do anything. I didn't know I had anything to offer.
Mhm.
And so once I realized that, then I was able to then move into who I really am and what I was truly gifted in doing, the passions that God had put in my life, and how to show up better.
Mhm.
Until you know that, you still will feel a certain way and you still will allow people to treat you a certain way
Mhm.
until you realize who you are and
Mhm.
what God has gifted you to do, and that you were chosen not by man, but by
Mhm.
God. And when
Mm.
you know that he chose you, that's the greatest gift of all. And then you're able to then produce what it
Mm.
is that's inside of you.
Wow, that is, first of all, I want to thank you for being honest about that, because I feel like that's how we help people, is when we're honest with our own, vulnerability. And I definitely can relate to that so much. It's so interesting because for me, hi, only zone alarm. Thank you so much for joining us, you guys. Please leave those exos in the chat if you just got here, and also questions that you have for Dr. Jeri. I think that most people probably, have dealt with, we talk about imposter syndrome, and,
Yes.
feeling not worthy, and feeling like you're not the chosen one. And it's funny because I remember I felt like that in my first marriage, and I have felt like that in my marriage now. Like, did he really, is this like, am I the best? Does he think I'm the best girl in the world? Right?
Right.
That's just a normal feeling. And I think that what you said is so true, because I think we have to understand who we are in God. And then we understand, and because a lot of times we're putting all this pressure, all this
Yeah,
responsibility on someone that cannot be that for us
they
anyway.
can.
They're
No.
not supposed to. And so that is huge. I think that a lot of times, even when going back to women that are single, they're expecting a man to act a certain way. You want him to
Yeah.
know exactly what to say. Well, when I said this to him, he didn't say this back.
Right. He's supposed to know.
We think that, though. I can say
Right.
I have definitely, well, when I told him, even, with my husband, like, I told him this and he responded this way. And I think a lot of times that does stem from insecurity and self-esteem
Mhm.
issues that
Yeah.
only God can fix. And so
Yeah.
Scorpio Low asked how much of it starts from self. And I will acknowledge, like Dr. Jeri said, I think most of it comes from self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you believe that you're worthy and you believe that you're lovable,
Yes.
that person, you would be like, of course they're with me, because I am an
Why
amazing
wouldn't you
person
want
with
to?
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
good.
Okay, Marriott has a question, and this is one of our subscribers for she's been one of the solid ones from day one.
Amen.
Marriott asks, how to transition from being independent and doing things on your own to wanting to do things, to waiting to do things when your man is ready. And when I tell you, I am right here, Dr. Jeri, I need to know the answer because I was being being independent, and not because I wanted to, that was just my life.
Yeah.
And so now I have to check myself and say, wait a minute, I have to ask, Adrian, how does he feel? I have to ask him, what does he want to do? Because it's easy for me to just say, okay, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're
Yeah.
doing this,
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's a great question, Marriott. How can we transition from being independent and doing things to waiting to do things when your man is ready? And my husband has chimed in and said, please answer that question in detail.
Wow. That's a heavy question because we all struggle with that, especially alpha female women. We do struggle with that. I was told by Bishop Jakes one day that it's not that we necessarily women wanted to always be in control.
Mm-hmm.
We had no choice sometimes but to be in control, either because the man wasn't there or because when he was there, he didn't step up. And so we had to do it all. And because we had to do it all, we just did it. Like you said, I mean, we're just going to take control. We're going to do it. And that's it. But it's now finding, because that's me, right? I'm controlling. I understand that. And so I'm trying to work on this piece of waiting on him, because when I waited on him before, he would say, just, give me a few days, but a few days was a few weeks was a few months. And I was frustrated. Like, okay, I'm just going to do what I want to do because I can't wait for you to make this decision. But I believe that when you come together and you realize that, maybe one makes a decision longer or take longer to make a decision than another, because I'm like, boom, make the decision. And he's like, let me think about it. And so now we have to come together and say, okay, well, I would jump to it and you're going to take 10 days. Can we make it 3 days? Can we make it 3 days so that we're both happy with this, this happy medium place that we can now make a decision together, and not let it be one person is taking the control over the whole thing? Because if you're saying, I got to wait on him, now you're bitter.
Yeah.
You're upset because you got to wait on him. I got to wait on him. He's taking his time. No, how about I'll give you some time. Let's figure this thing out and let's come back together. Don't just say, well, let's wait on me to make a decision. No, let's talk about it and let's figure out when, how long it really will take to make this decision, because maybe one person is quick and maybe one person is not. And so waiting sometimes can be hard, but I feel like if you feel like you're validated,
there you go,
the point is validated and he hears you, then you can give more patience to the situation and you can give more, leeway and grace to what he wants to do. And then you can kind of work through it and you're not so angry or bitter because I gotta wait on him. Lord, it's gonna take 10 days. I know it, right? But now we have an agreement that, we're gonna do what's best for both of us. You're a waiter, I'm a quick. How can we come together on this decision so that we're making it together and nobody's mad at each other? But that takes time and it takes communication. I believe communication is key. And that's sometimes what we lack, especially, if you have a husband or a boyfriend or whomever that doesn't communicate well. Then we're bumping heads because I want to talk, tell me. Most of us do, right? Women, we want tell me. And they're like, I don't even know myself, and so still having that patience to say, okay, I'm going to wait a little bit and give them some time to want to talk about it.
Right. Yeah,
and
I like that.
showing that I care. I care about what you're feeling. I'm caring about what you're thinking. I'm caring about that you want to take some time for this decision. So help me to wait. Lord, give me strength to wait.
Strength. Yeah, that's good. Lord, give me the strength. But or just, and I think sometimes it's just when you're used to doing things your own way, you can get comfortable doing that. But I think, just being uncomfortable means you're growing. And I don't think we ever get to the point that we're not. Scorpio Mo has a question, and then I want us to talk about your book, Dr. Jeri, because I have saved the juicy stuff until 39 minutes in. The juicy part in just a minute. But Scorpio Mo asks, what can we do as men to help with the healing process if she's not totally healed?
I think to help with the healing process, one is to give space, right? To
Mhm.
acknowledge that I see you, I hear you, I understand what you may be saying as it relates to what you're going through. Maybe it's even, saying, hey, if she's going through therapy, be patient to, to go through therapy with her, or allow her that time to go through that space of learning who she is. It may be some time that, you have to really pull back. I believe that we have to find a way to give grace to people, find a way where that lack is. Because, if I think about my mom, why was she not loving? Why did she not hug me? Why did she not kiss me all the time? That's because she was never kissed or hugged that way, because she was number 12. Right. She was a baby of 12 children, and her mother didn't hug her. And so really learning that piece of her, and then learning to give her grace because she wanted to. It's not that she didn't want to, it's because she didn't have it. And it's hard to give something you never had until you acknowledge what that lack is and then break that cycle. And so, really, as she's healing, give her grace to heal, give her time to move and to learn who she is all over again. Love her. I think that's the main thing, is to love somebody and to show that you care. And even when they may go off on you, whatever, just write a little note. You know what I did when my husband and I got back together last year, because we were getting ready to get divorced? I said, it would be nice. Let's just start all over again. And how about a little note that says, will you date me? Or, Jeri, do you like me? With the box, yes or no, check. And you know what? While I was going out of town, he put it in my suitcase and he said, open the envelope when you get there. And I opened the envelope. He says, hi, Jeri, this is Robert. Do you like me? Will you date me? And I thought, oh my goodness. But it showed that he listened and that he cared.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it was cute.
Gun Boss, we're not answering that question because that is not on the menu tonight. What is wrong with him? But Dr. J, I want you to share the title of your book. And then let's talk about this, because I do think that, number one, I appreciate you being willing to share something as vulnerable as the situation that you went through with your husband. But we know, because of those situations, other people are going through them as well.
Yeah.
And so I want you to share, and then I'll jump in there. But I want you guys, I put that we're, both of us were authors, and we're going to talk about issues that are in both of the books. So, Dr. Jeri, if you will.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
The title of your book, and then what inspired you to, to write this book.
Sure. So the name of my book, this is the second one, but the name of my book is Who's Sleeping with Your Husband? And it was really God inspired, honestly. Over 10 years ago, God gave me that title. I was doing a wives conference, and that just came in my spirit. But we were talking about the fruits of the spirit and what fruits did you possess. And so the title was Who's Sleeping with Your Husband? And it was always you, but who are you? What spirit do you have? What do you possess? Who are you? What person are you? And at the time, like I said, it was about spiritual gifts. But when God showed me later down the road, it was really a book. It was really a movement. It is a movement. It's about really who I was. So book number 1 came out, and I talk about that I didn't know who I was. And so I was sleeping with my husband, but I had no idea who I was. And I was really just being the person I thought he wanted me to be. We were living in a fishbowl, right? So everybody was the God highs. We were ministers, we were in church, we were serving, I'm covering him. And I was really never who I was supposed to be. And so I was always pretending that I was somebody who I wasn't. I was pretending to be this perfect wife, this person that was super happy, and that my husband treated me well and my kids do great, right? But it was all a lie. And so I had to really break down into pieces who is my husband sleeping with? He's sleeping with me, but I was not real. I was not who I was supposed to be. And then I talk about, some things about when I grew up. I talk about the being abandoned. I also talk about, maybe a little infidelity. But basically, the book is really about who are you sleeping with? Who's your husband sleeping with? He's sleeping with you, but sometimes maybe he wasn't, right? But typically for me, he was sleeping with me, but I didn't know who I was. And then I did book 2. God told me to do the book 2. And I was like, why? Why am I doing book 2? And he says, because there are other women who have a story similar to yours that didn't know who they are, or they struggled with this, or they struggled with infidelity, or they, had husbands that weren't all for them. And so we have 12 other women that wrote their stories in the book as well. And so that's an anthology. And so it's super fantastic because women are now sharing their story too. And it's TOO, Who's Sleeping with Your Husband Too. And that was released September last year. And now I have a new book coming out called Who's Sleeping with Your Wife. And that's a man's guide to rediscovery and living his life in a true, authentic way. And we're going to have men tell their story about their lives and who they are and how they have now become this man that they never thought they could be. And so it will help other men to walk true, in their true selves. And so super excited about that.
That's awesome. And I think, that specifically speaking about women and being, putting up a facade, I can relate to trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
I definitely, especially when I was younger, I mean, I just wanted to have, and I think that came from feeling very much as a child. I didn't like the fact that I came from a broken family. I didn't like the fact that we didn't have a lot. And so I created what I wanted to have. And and I thought that it would be, because I grew up, my dad wasn't around at all. Then I just thought, okay, well, I don't want that to happen to my kids. I want to have the perfect family, the white picket fence, the kid. And so I started doing that. But what it was doing was putting a lot of pressure. What I didn't realize is when you're not being yourself, it's really hard. If you're not loving your authentic self, it's really hard for someone else to love you authentically, right?
Yes.
And so as a result of that, and I definitely do not take responsibility for my ex-husband's actions because everyone is responsible for their own actions.
Absolutely.
But what I do take responsibility for is when I was in that marriage, I did not know how to be a wife. And also I had a hard time loving Christal without conditions.
Yeah.
And so if I couldn't love Christal without conditions, how can I expect someone else to love Christal without conditions, right? So I was the type of person that would if I gained weight, I would feel really bad about myself. And I would feel like, how would he want to be intimate with me because I've gained weight? If if I got a pimple, I felt so much pressure, so much pressure on myself, and I judged myself so harshly. And that put pressure on my marriage. And so ultimately, my ex-husband did end up having an affair. And I wonder, as you learn, you try to apply things differently. And I know I'm thankful that God blessed me with an amazing love now. That is so much better for me, but I don't want to make those same decisions and those same mistakes. And I know that I still overall have a very personality that wants to get things right. I don't like to fail. I don't like to, I don't like weaknesses, not even so much to impress other people, but just because I want to get it.
Yeah.
I'm really hard on myself because I want to do well. So I've learned I had to come out of a marriage and then to get back in to learn how to fix some of these things. And I'm still working on it. But I want to ask you, because you were able to stay in your marriage and tap back into your authentic self. So how were you able to do that? Because that's a huge revelation that, I'm not being my authentic self with my husband. So how were you able to go back and find Jeri and still stay in the marriage and you guys be able to move forward together?
Yeah, that's good. That's good, Christal, because I'm the same way. I was very hard on myself too, and gaining weight right after kids and all of that other stuff. You feel like you're less desirable. And so what you put out is what you get back. And so whether they felt that way or not, you felt that way. And so you didn't produce because you felt that you were fat. I felt that I was fat. He wasn't attracting me. Why was he not attracting me? Because that's what I put out. But how did I find myself again? And how did we continue to stay? So, again, in the whole time that we were married, I was very insecure in me. And I didn't have the validation from him. And so I, kept pretending and trying to be everything I thought I could be to him, but it was never measuring up because I wasn't me. And it will always show, people always, they will treat you how you show up and how you allow them to treat you. And because I didn't know who I was, I was able to be mistreated because that's how I came across. And then, yeah, and that's how I came across. And so, to stay in the marriage and to find myself at the same time was very, very difficult because people don't want you to change. Okay, can I say that again? People don't want you to change when they're used to you being one way. And when I realized that, oh my gosh, I lost me, I lost who I was, I lost myself in this relationship, I had to change. And so I had to drop everything and everybody to a fault because I couldn't do anymore. I couldn't continue to be perfect Jeri. I couldn't continue to be perfect mom. I couldn't continue to show up for my kids every single minute. They're grown, let me tell you. Okay, they're grown. I'm still trying to show up for them, right? and and then I'm still trying to, do everything he wants me to do. And if I don't show up right, he's mad. So I had to drop everything. And I said, that's it. I almost came to a place where I'm like, I can't do it. I said, that's it. And so I really got into therapy and I had to realize I'm a people pleaser. And I had to stop pleasing people and start pleasing me and figure out what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want in my life? Because life was slipping me by. I had gotten diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I felt like, I was going to die at one point. So I had to grab a hold to me and figure out life is not promised. So I got to figure out what it is about me. In me figuring it out, we had a problem.
Yeah.
We grew further and further apart because I no longer was the person he wanted me to be. I was no longer the person that catered to him, right? And so it got harder and harder and harder. But the harder it got, the more I dug into God, the more I dug into prayer, my prayer life, and to really dig deep into me. What is it that I want to do? What is it that I'm called to do? Why on earth am I here? Because I was sinking. I don't know if anybody out there feels the same way, where you feel like you're sinking, that you can't find yourself, that you don't know who you are, and that if you don't, something don't change, you're going to die. God is saying to you today to reach out to him, reach up to him because he's your only source. He's your only way out. He's the only one that can show you you. He's the only one that can tell you what he created you to do, what he created you to be, the love that he has for you. And I had to seek him and figure out what is it, God, that you have for me, because I am dying inside. And the more I did that, the more I grew out, the more our relationship grew apart. And I had to come to a point where I said, you know what? This is it. I cannot do this anymore, because he was angry. He was angry that I wasn't who I was anymore, because I was starting to find me. I was growing up in me, and I started to not just accept any old thing, because that was not what I wanted in the very beginning, right? It wasn't who I even was. But because of that pushback meant that our relationship was coming to a head. Like it's coming to a head. So either we're going to do or we're going to die. And that's what happened. We were going to die. I had filed for divorce. I was out of there. I was getting ready. We put the house on the market, all of that, because I couldn't do it anymore. I could not pretend to be something I wasn't. And I couldn't be this woman that he wanted to be, which was quiet, meek, and lowly, right? Where I was the bold, vocal person that was wanting to take control. But I was crying out all along, love me, hear me, see me. And they couldn't see me. And so God had to do the work. And so when I did all of that, filed divorce, we were still living in the same house, living in separate rooms. God told him, ask your wife for another chance. mind you, I'm gone. My mindset was gone. I was out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But when he asked me that, it was hard because I realized that even though my mind was gone, my heart was still there.
Yeah.
And so I, got counsel. I see counsel on what to do. And I was told, give it another chance
Mm-hmm.
because you're in a different space, mindset, heart space. Give it another chance. You're different than you were before.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay. And now it's different, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not different because it just automatically became different. It got
Right.
different because we then made different choices. We made different rules and set of standards that
Mm-hmm.
now we live by to make each other happy, and
Mm-hmm.
not just because that's the way I want you to be,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now accepting me for really who I am, and then flip the script, accepting him for who he is,
That's right.
and then growing together. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we are now, still in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
32 years don't just go away. Bad stuff just don't just disappear. You
Right.
have to work on it.
Yeah.
As you're working on it, God will perfect it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to ask you this because we talked about this. I attended your cover reveal brunch. That was so beautiful,
Oh, thank
and thank you
you.
so much for inviting me and for just loving on me and honoring me at that brunch. But it was really about your woman to woman cover, and how it was just a great opportunity to celebrate you. But I said to you that night, and that's why that the afternoon, I wanted you to have this conversation because we don't really hear women speak about why they should stay with a relationship that is not working, right?
Yeah,
We're in a culture and a society that's very much like, oh, if it don't work, leave.
yeah,
If you're not getting what you need, you leave. And there's a very there's a narrative specifically for women that, you go, if he's not doing exactly what you want and
no
you're not
go.
happy, girl,
Yeah,
you'd be better off without him. And that's all I ever heard. So I remember when I came to a difficult part in my marriage, and that was, that was infidelity for me. I was like, I'm out. And I
yeah.
left. I found out my ex-husband was cheating at 10 o'clock. And by midnight, I had left
She
the
said, "I'm
marriage, left.
right,
Like,
right,
of course, you leave and you think that your husband's going to come. I had this idea in my head, like he's supposed to come after me. He's
right.
supposed to tell me that this woman he's sleeping with is not for him and tell her this is who I really choose. This is all
Yeah,
these things in my head. If you don't do this, then
yeah,
that's not going to prove that you choose me because I didn't feel like a chosen little girl.
yeah.
And I literally left the marriage after 13 years in 2 hours.
Mm,
But that's because my family, the women in my family were very much like, you don't need a man. A man is an accessory. So if he does anything to mess up, you leave, you make sure your money is right and you leave. Because
right.
really a lot of it was like the only reason you stay with a man is if you get the money, you can take care of yourself, then you move on. I want you to always have enough money. So if the man acts crazy, you can leave him. And there really was, I mean, that was the real conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
So I didn't have anyone that said, and I don't think it's because they didn't mean well, that wasn't their
yeah,
experience. But
yeah.
there wasn't anyone in my life that said, do you love your husband?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to fix your marriage? No one said that, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't have that. So in this marriage, I know, that there will
Yes.
come times when you're hurt or that person hurts you or you hurt that person. But
Right.
I want to be, number one, I want to surround myself with women that would say to me, Christal, work on your marriage. Marriage is not, to me, marriage is not to be, it's forever. That's what
Mhm.
I meant those vows. So how were you able to see, even after having been in the mental space of I'm done,
Yeah.
what value did you see so that you were able to be obedient to
Mm.
to God, putting that on your heart to truly give him another chance? What made the marriage valuable enough to you to say it's worth fighting for?
Yeah, that's good. And I tell you, I struggle with it. But I feel like at that point when he said, give me another chance, if I really didn't want the marriage, I would
Mhm,
have told him, you crazy, I'm still out of here. But I believe because my heart was still open to him
mhm,
to still want the marriage to work.
mhm,
I called my mentor. I said, hey, I don't know what to do, right? Because my mind says to go, but my heart says to stay.
Yeah.
And in that, she told me, she says, listen, if your husband is asking you to stay, then give it another chance. She said, and I'm saying to give it another chance because you are different now. You will know if he's playing a game or not. You'll
Mm-hmm.
know if he's genuine or not.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know it quicker. You'll
Mm-hmm.
know it better because you're in a different space. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to stay, give it a chance and see if this time would be better. See
Mm-hmm.
what God has for you. And I was like, right? Because it came through much prayer. And I said,
Yeah.
okay, God, I trust you,
Yeah.
not man, but I trust you. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it another chance. And
Mm-hmm.
it has been better than it ever has been. Is
Nice.
it still a struggle? Absolutely. Because we still have some things that we're working out.
Mm-hmm.
We still bump heads on things because 32 years of bumping heads don't just go away.
No,
you know,
no.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it was the love.
That is funny. I have a funny story because I remember because I got divorced in the early 2000s, right?
Mhm.
Early 2000s. And so I remember I got in my car, and this was before my divorce papers were final. And and I was genuinely in this space. When you do the best you can with what you have at that time.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
get in the car, and I had been working on working for I was a young publicist. I had been working for a woman that worked for Usher. And so
Ah,
Usher had this Confessions was out, and it was a big hit. And I remember I got in the car, and I was trying to, I was just so hurt. And I remember Let It Burn came on, right? And it was like, just let it burn. It's gonna burn for me to say. I was singing along with Usher, and I was like, it's right. I gotta just let it burn. I gotta let it burn. It's just like, just and the song really, I mean, it's a beautiful song, but he was like, um, I can't even remember the lyrics, but it just resonated with me. And I was like,
mm,
Usher is telling me, I'm in my car, and I'm like, Usher is the voice. I mean, he is telling me that it's time. It's, sometimes I love you, but it's just time to let it burn. And
mm.
so later, I remember I was praying. I was with one of my mentors, my big sister, and I was telling her the story, and I was like, and I just knew at that time. And she said, Christal, did you pray to God? She said, were you listening to God? Or are you telling me that you were listening to Usher? She's like,
Yeah.
it didn't occur to me until then. I was like, yeah, I guess that probably wasn't the right thing to do. I guess, just you hear a song, you hear something,
Yeah.
and it's emotional. It's an emotional pull, and you immediately just go on a tangent. I think
Yes.
I mean, I just, in my spirit, I was like, it's just, I think that it's time to let it burn. And so then when I got, when I had that revelation, we laughed about it. But now, as funny as that sounds, when I go through something,
Mhm.
I purposely will not. McDonald said, God will send you Usher. No, no, because, well, let me not say that, but no, I don't listen to a song because you can always put on a song. You can always talk to a friend that'll tell you what the flesh would say, right? Or what
Yeah.
will cater to your ego, right? And so I try to be careful not to put on I think Jasmine Sullivan has Girl Like Me, like, you're not choosing me, and so now I'm gonna burn down your, like, it's just, you got to listen to God, you got to go to God, you got to find friends, you got to find mentors like yourself that can actually say, hey, who are we listening to? We don't want to listen to Summer Walker. We don't
No.
want, not that, I mean, we enjoy Summer Walker, we enjoy SZA, but you may not want to listen to that for
Right.
direction, right?
Or direction. Mhm.
Because you can really get into, music is so powerful, and
Yes.
even Instagram. Now, Instagram is a big thing. Back then it wasn't, but you can look online, go through a hurtful situation, look online,
Yeah.
see a similar situation just like that, and think, you know
Mhm.
what, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be, because we're operating on emotion. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to share that that little story, because I really tease myself, like, Christal, when I'm upset, I've learned to check myself and go to the Bible or go to a friend because you can
Don't
always
listen to the
find a
music
song that, girl,
that will, right.
I'm telling you, I said, Usher said, I gotta let it burn. Let this marriage
Mhm.
burn. Like, it did.
It did. It
Yeah,
did.
but I don't want I don't want this one to burn. I have to say it. And I
No.
swear I go to like War Room, that movie War Room, where
Yeah.
the woman would when the husband was tripping, she would go to pray to go to God and or
Mhm.
find conscientious friends or
Yeah.
mentors that you can speak to. And that's the point that I was making when I came to your brunch. It's like to be around women that are saying, there's value in your relationship. There's
Yes. Yeah.
value there. It's not just all about you.
Yeah.
You want to be able, God wants you to have a partner. God created you to have a partner. There is value, there's beauty in that,
Yeah.
outside of what he provides and outside of this, there's beauty and connection and being under
Right.
covenant. And so I would like to ask you, what what have you learned about just having that staying power? Because it sounds like you guys have fallen in love all over again. I love that. Do you like me?
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for like little
Right.
cheesy things like
Me
that. But I think
too.
it goes back to wanting to be chosen. Um,
Yeah.
so what have you learned about your husband second time around that you may not have known or that you understand in a deeper depth this time?
Yeah. So, that's so funny because it does feel good to be chosen. What I've learned this time through therapy, honestly, is that I didn't realize, and I think that's what I was talking to you about being this alpha female.
Hmm.
I am strong. I come across, I do this, I do that because let's do it. I got to get it done. I'm a doer. And so I didn't realize that in his life, he's always had women to, whether it's mother, maybe it's grandmother or aunt or whatever, they were all strong and they all came across strong. But he
Hmm.
said, what I really wanted in a wife was that when I was saying something or when I was hurting, that she would come across soft,
Mm.
that she would hear me and that she would just say, well, how can I help you? Or be loved on and not just, what do you want? I can't believe that. But I was that one, right? I would always do that because I would take it as an attack on me and
Mhm.
not that it was something he needed help with,
Mm.
right? And
Mm.
so now I can see, oh, wow, he needs a little softness. And so
Mm.
I'm trying to be a little softer. I'm
Mm.
trying to be that one that has a little more compassion and a little more grace and not get so upset when he doesn't respond the way I think he should, or he comes home and he's angry and it's not about me. So,
Mm.
because again, when you're not chosen, when people do something to you, you always think that, or do they do something, you think it's about you, and it
Yeah.
may have nothing to do with you. But
Mm.
you just you take offense to it because, here it is, somebody is not choosing you again, or they're blaming you, or they're pushing you away. And so it's certainly about me, but it
Mm.
may not be about you. And so now I'm learning how to be softer. It's not
Mm.
easy. It's
Mm.
not easy because I am strong, right? I've been taught to be strong. My mother was single until I was 16 years old. And so she was like, you take care of yourself, you do this, you do,
Mm.
and so that's what I learned. You wait on nobody.
Yep.
But now I have to learn how to be softer.
Yeah.
And that's through the grace of God. God help me to be a softer person for him because
Mm.
that's what he needs.
Yeah.
He gets
Um,
healed.
that's interesting that you said that. I think that's a key to this. When we have these conversations, Mo and I have these conversations with some of the single people or about this show, dating show, and a lot of the women are so opposed to being softer. Like it's just
Hmm.
anger, anger, anger comes out. Like, why do we have to be soft? Why do we have to be their peace? They're not peaceful for us. They should find peace on their own. Why? It's so much pushback.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said is the reason that there is so much pushback, because I know for myself, I am a lot softer now than I used to be. Trust me.
Hmm.
I would respond like that. Like, well,
Hmm.
I'm not your mother and I'm not, and I would immediately find reasons to be like, tell a guy, this is just not a good fit. That was one of my favorite things. It's not a good fit. We could be friends. I would quickly do that.
Hmm.
But I think that in that asking a woman to be softer is saying to her that there's something wrong with you. And they're
Mm,
responding in defense of there's nothing wrong with me, because I too was my grandmother, who was my hero.
mhm.
My grandmother said, God helps those who help themselves.
Yeah.
There was
Right.
no room in my grandmother's outlook on anything that was considered weak. She was
Mm,
a hardworking woman. She took care of her family. Very not very emotional,
mhm.
and my mom was different than her, but they were both very much like, get up, stop crying, move on. What are you
Yes.
doing? Da, da, da. Like, it
Mhm.
was no room for softness. So
Yeah.
at the point that someone wants you to be in a way that's different than you, and the reason they were like that is because they were single women that had to work on their own. My grandmother
Yeah.
divorced all her husbands. She did. I was my grandmother. My grandmother would get rid of him. She said, he's getting on my nerves. He got to go. Um,
Okay.
I love her to death. That was my love. But her last husband, I'll never forget this. And it was my grandfather. I thought, he was my pop. I didn't understand that he wasn't really
Yeah.
my mom's father. So I remember I came to visit her, and she hadn't even told me that that she had divorced him. And so I came to visit her, and I couldn't wait to get there and go through the house. I was like, where's Pop? I'm
Mhm.
11. And she said, oh, he's gone.
He's like, "God."
Where is he? I just could not imagine. This is a kid that was constantly so much love in that house.
Yeah.
She said, he's gone. And I said, well, and I was sad. I remember she looked at me like, and I knew I couldn't let her know I was sad. So later I found out that my grandmother divorced him because he had 5 children,
Mhm.
and she did not want his ex-wife taking any of her check. So she immediately kicked him to the curb to keep the check from being compromised. I mean, but at 11, I just really missed my pop.
Right.
But I
Right.
was taught that even in that situation, no tears, no, he had to go. Just
That's
compromise
it.
my money, he
Yeah.
had to go. So when a man would say to me, well, you know, they wanted softness, or I'm like, what is wrong with you? Tighten
Yeah.
tighten
Yeah.
up, like, because that's what I was
Right.
taught.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then it almost feels like, and I will ask even the chat to respond to this. I feel like a lot of times men will penalize us for not having had a father. Like I see my husband with his daughters.
Mhm.
So just, I mean, they can do anything. He's just so good.
Mhm.
But I never had that.
Never had
So
that.
I
Yeah.
never had someone that just chose me. I mean, they can do anything, and
Yeah.
he just loves them to death because they're his they don't have to do anything to get his love.
Right.
I am
Right.
used to proving myself,
Mhm.
for love. Like, I have to show you that I am this and that. But I see with him that they can just call and he just melts.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of times men will penalize a woman who has never had that experience. Well, you don't know how to be soft. Well, there was never anyone in the home
Yeah.
that just was soft for her.
Right.
You know,
Right. And it's hard to give something you didn't have.
it's
Yeah.
hard to give something that you didn't have. And mothers don't necessarily, especially a lot of Black mothers,
Mhm.
you don't have time to be soft because you want your daughter to be strong. You want her to be able to take care of herself. My mother didn't want me to be a victim. She always taught me
Right.
not to be a victim.
Yes, I
Don't
did
get
the same
yourself in a
thing.
situation that you can prevent. You earn
Mhm.
your own money, you have your own this, you do this so that no one can take advantage of you.
Right.
And that's not coming from a place of hurt. That's coming from a place of trying to protect, your child. But now it produces so many women who don't know how to connect with that softness. And
Yeah.
then you have so many men that are upset because they want something that they haven't probably seen.
Right. Right, at the same time.
Right, but
Mhm.
they crave it because it's
But
the
they
nature of a
crave it.
man and a woman, and I think the only place that a lot of us see that is with the mother and the son, you
Yeah.
know? Because I remember when I had my son, this was so weird. I learned this later through therapy. When I had my son, I was married, I was married for 13 years, but when I had my son, I remember looking at him and thinking, "Oh my gosh, I can fall in love with him without boundaries.
Mhm.
I can
Mhm.
just give my heart to him, right? And this
Mhm.
is the one man that won't hurt me regardless. And I was aware of that, holding that little baby. Like I could just fall. Where with a man, I've been taught to be on guard.
Yeah.
He could, he may hurt you, he may try to do this. And I think what a lot of my guy friends would say, wow, if you could love a man like you love your son.
Mm. Mhm.
And I think a lot of women get angry because they don't, I'm not your mama. Well, but that's where he felt that unconditional love from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so just, what would you say to that? Because I think unfortunately we have a lot of women that haven't had that, and that's not your fault.
Yeah.
Deserve love still, but how do you take accountability for not having something that you never had access to?
Yeah, it's true. And it's honestly, it's about breaking generational curses,
Mhm.
or situations because you didn't create them,
Yeah.
but you're living in it. And a lot of times you can't break something until you're aware of it.
Yeah.
Once you are aware of it, then you're able to break that cycle and you're able to do differently. And still you fight against it because it is a cycle and cycles are hard to break.
Mhm.
But I agree with you. We do pour our love into our sons, and they do hurt you too at some point, when they get older sometimes. But yeah, and so I want to share with someone today that even though we say show your softer side, and even though you may struggle with being so hard, because I was hard, my mother was hard. I was hard on my daughter. Don't you cry. Don't you, this world's not going to let you, be soft and all this stuff. And so it's because that's what I learned. But
Mhm.
now I'm having to say, okay, it's okay to be soft, but he
Mhm.
still knows you're strong. He
Mhm.
still knows when you come across to your husband and he knows who you are. He knows that you're a go-getter. He knows you can do all these things. But when you become soft, it doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're showing love to him. And
Mhm.
so if there's a way to not give up who you are with the gifting and passions and being that leader in the boardroom and all of that stuff, you don't have to give that up. That's still who you are. But
Mhm.
being soft with him when it's time to be soft, it's a gift. It's a
Yeah.
gift we have as women to be able to transition into something else for somebody else. And we do it for our friends too, right? We do it for our parents, our aging parents or whomever. We switch gears, that thing. What do they call that thing? People do it at code switch. They do it at work. You become something else for somebody else.
That's
But
true.
we can be softer for them. It's a matter of choice. And then it's a matter of us learning how to be soft, but not feel weak.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
a balance. It's a heavy balance of how do I become soft, but not weak. And
Oh,
it's
that's
really
good.
in what you believe in yourself. That's how you do it. It's
Yeah.
because you still believe that you are this boss woman. You got it going on. But at
Mhm.
the same time, even though I have it going on, I still can take time to say, you know what? Let me slow down a little bit and find out what is it that he needs.
Mhm.
Maybe I don't have to jump at the gun. Maybe I can just say, hey, babe, what's wrong? What's
Mhm.
going on? Can I serve you today? Not
Mhm.
because I have to, but
Mhm.
because I want to. If he wants a home cooked meal, I can cook. I don't
Mhm.
want to cook. I don't like to cook all the time. I can cook, but he
Mhm.
loves home cooked meals.
Mhm.
Right? So do I. But nobody cooking for me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another story.
They
But
all like that, Jer. I swear to God, they all.
because he loves it, then
Mhm.
that means okay, I'm going to try to do this for you
Yeah.
because it makes him happy.
Mhm. I like that S. Freeman 417 says softness is a gift and shows strength. I definitely agree with that. And I think you could tell me what you think about this, Dr. Jerry. I feel like when I have, and in this relationship that I'm in now, I remember working so hard and being just dealing with arguing with people over having to have this strong defensive wall as an entrepreneur, and
Hmm.
then getting home and being so tired. Sometimes I would just cry because I was so tired. And I
Yes.
would come home and I remember when I got this house, I loved it. But I would come home and sometimes I would just get in the bed and just cry myself to sleep. Not because I was sad, I was just tired. I was broke
Yes.
down and I didn't have anybody there, And I remember I
Hmm.
was talking to him. I was like, it would just be great if I could just come home and just lay on somebody,
Yeah.
just to be able to take that boss hat off,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
and now I would say for me, because I asked you earlier what you love the most about your husband. And I would say for me, I am a person that would work until I was dog tired.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was because I wanted to provide at a certain level for my children. I didn't want them to be penalized by my divorce.
Right. Right.
But it's kind of hard now because people are like, Crystal, you're not working that hard. You don't have to work exactly that hard. But the beautiful thing is, I know that there's somebody in there that he may not have to say anything, but I can just go snuggle up and lay down, and he'll hold me, and that's it. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm telling you, it means so much. It's so good for your mental health.
Yes.
It's been a blessing for my mental health just to have somebody who I know is responsible for me and says, "You're fine. I got you. I
Yeah.
got you." That is that, and that allows me to be soft. So I guess my question to you is, have you noticed that when you operate in that soft space, that he immediately, instinctively gives you that comfort and that balance that you need?
Yeah, I would say that when you give them that softness, it does calm their spirit down, and it does give them that peace that they so desire. And so then they oftentimes starts to meet your needs,
Mhm,
right? Because they want to give back on what you're giving.
mhm.
It doesn't always come right away.
No?
Sometimes it takes a little minute or two, and then they'll see, okay, well, maybe I should be a certain way. But
Mhm,
yeah, it does. It gives you that calming peace that you do need and that they need for themselves.
mhm,
I will say this though, Crystal, because sometimes people watch and they say, well, I don't have anybody to come home to. And
mhm,
so maybe that's the worst thing in the world. And I'm so sad. And I don't have anybody to snuggle up to and put my head in their shoulder, right, from a hard day. And so I would say, but you may not have that person in the flesh, but
mhm,
God is there for you. And even if it's not a man, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your auntie, maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a friend,
mhm,
somebody that does say, that can validate, girl, you are good, you got it, you can do this, I'm here with you. And
mhm,
go to that person that you know you can depend on, that will give you that peace that you're missing in your life. And
mhm.
that way it will help you to move forward. And so when you do go home and you don't have anybody in your bed, you're okay
You're
until God sends you that person, right? Because we don't want someone to think that, it has to be a man that really completes that piece of you. It would
that
be nice if that's what you desire. But
mhm,
also God always has a ram in the bush, that old saying. He has somebody for you that
mhm,
will help pick up the pieces and fill in the gaps that
mhm.
you're missing. But you
That's
have to be willing to open up to
mhm,
whoever it is that he sends your way so
yeah.
that you have that peace that you need.
Amen. No, that's absolutely true. And I did, sometimes it's funny because for so long I was single. I was single for 10 years, with
Yeah.
someone for 13, and then single for 10. Um, and I was of the mindset that when I would hear I had kind of given up. That's why I could
Mhm.
relate so much.
Mhm.
When the young lady said earlier, like, people don't hit on me. I just didn't think anyone was going to be serious. I didn't think anyone was really
Mhm.
going to want the same things I want, and
Yeah.
because I live in a city that promotes a lot of things that I just didn't want to be a part of. I really wanted, something, and I just decided, well, it was okay if I didn't get it. And I was promoting that. Well, I'm fine. I'm single, but I'm fine. I'm single, but I'm fine. I'm single, but I'm fine. And so that was what was happening. I'm sure I didn't have to
Mhm.
be single that long, but because I kept saying that, and I kept
Yeah.
I kept making that a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I like to sometimes just tell
Yeah.
out where I am now. So where I
Yeah.
am, where before I couldn't even imagine, even acknowledging that I would have loved to do that, to snuggle up.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
was so in the space of feeling like I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't
Mhm.
need that.
Mhm.
We don't want to want what we can't have. It's a sign
Right.
of weakness, like 48 laws of power, despise what you don't have, right?
Right.
So I was very much in that space. So I think it's important for me to acknowledge that that is a comforting thing, but I agree
Yeah.
100% with you that what I will say is it is much better to be in a peaceful bed than with someone that you have settled for that is
Yes.
making you miserable.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It is definitely worth waiting on the right
Yeah.
person. But I think that so many of the women that I meet and my friends and people that I'm around have gotten themselves convinced that it's not out there for them, that
Mm,
they've given up on even believing that can happen.
right.
And I love your story because you and your husband were able to rediscover it after all these years. It just proves that God can do
He
anything.
can do anything. That was a miracle for me because we were both gone, like mentally gone. So to me, that was a miracle when God stepped in and said, "That's enough. You're
Mhm.
not going anywhere." Because I was gone. I was going to be moving to either Maryland or Dallas. That's where I was headed. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we're glad that you stayed here. I'm glad that you stayed here in Atlanta. Well, Dr. Jeri, first of all, I thank you so much for you've been
No,
on
thank
here an
you.
hour and a half. That is more than more than a sacrifice of your time. And I just want to thank
No,
you for
thank
sharing.
you. I enjoy it. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that you do. I want you to let people know where they can get copies of both books, and find out more about what you have coming up this summer.
Yeah, so they can get both books at Amazon.com. Um, there's a Amazon. I mean, there's we also in Barnes and Noble.
Mhm.
This particular book, well, both books are in in Barnes and Noble in the flesh on the
Mhm.
shelves. Amen. At the Cumberland Barnes and Noble. So super excited about that. They can get it from Books a Million, all the retail outlets, Target, Walmart. You can get that on .com, and then also. The new book will be coming out in June of this year,
Mhm.
prayerfully, and it will be okay. And
Absolutely.
we're looking to do rediscover, reignite her summit this year, coming up in June.
Mhm.
Last year, you were the best host as always. I love you for always showing up and being there. That's a blessing. And to have somebody in your life that people will show up for you
Mhm.
is a blessing. It's not something that's automatic. And so whenever I get a chance to tell somebody, thank you for showing up on my behalf, I do that because people don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And so just thankful for that. But we did rediscover Reignite Her last summer, and we had Kim Fields and Monica Coffin Pearson, and it was phenomenal. But this year, we're going to take it a little higher
Mhm.
and do something great. And so super excited about that. And then, of course, we're doing Women of Influence, and we'll do that quarterly, inviting different women to come together to collaborate and partner with one another so that we can help each other go to different heights and levels in life together. So
Mhm.
just super excited.
Well, I appreciate it, and I definitely am looking forward to reignite her. I enjoyed it. It was at a beautiful location,
Yeah.
in Stone Mountain last year. So peaceful. I pulled up. I was like, "Oh, this just feels like a peaceful, a little escape." We got a chance
Yeah.
to the
Retreat
world.
place.
It
Yeah.
was. It was a retreat. It was
Mhm.
beautiful. But looking forward to this year and being involved. Just a
Yeah.
beautiful experiment of women talking and really. I mean, we talked about everything from loving
Everything.
yourself to learning how to please your husband. It was a lot
Right.
going on. You guys definitely
We
learned.
learned how to continue to say the word vagina,
We
and
did.
it's okay.
We did. We
We're
learned a
not so
lot.
closed off.
Yeah. We did, but thank you so much. You guys, if
Thank
you want to follow
you.
Dr.
Thank you
Jeri,
so
she's on Instagram at Jeri Godhigh, and all that. All her information is there. You can find out about the books. You can get your copy of the book, and of course, find out about the conference coming up this summer. That you have enough time to get your flights and all that stuff ready, so you can
Yes.
come and join us this summer in Atlanta. So,
Yes.
Dr. Jeri, again, thank you so much, and I'm going to reach out to you later about something else. But thank you so much for coming and sharing with my audience. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. All right. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much to Dr. Jeri. You guys, thank you for hanging out. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. Actually, I enjoyed it and learned. I love learning more and hearing more from women that I have so much respect for. But I want you guys to remember to tune in tomorrow night. Mo and I are going to be joined by two gentlemen. We're actually going to have Marvin from the was it Dallas? Yes, the Dallas season is going to be on, along with our good friend Rob Malloy. And we're going to talk about just all this that's been going on social media with Ready to Love. We also have some women that are going to speak from a female's perspective, just women that reached out to me and said, hey, Christal, I have been the woman like April. I have acted like April before. I have been the woman shouting off the questions and been confrontational. And I want to talk about how I was able to stop doing that. And I said, please come. And so please join us tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And we look forward to seeing you guys there. And then, of course, on Thursday night, my conversation with Ava DuVernay. I cannot wait for you guys to hear it. It was a career high for me to be able to talk to her. So please stay tuned, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and we will see you tomorrow night at 8.